Thank you. So let's get started here. The usual cautionary notes, and let's jump directly to the next slide. So Atico was formed by the Ganoza family, the same family that started Fortuna Silver Mines. The company was created with a clear mandate to become a mid-tier producer in the copper and gold space. We look for high-grade, high-margin assets throughout Latin America, anywhere from post-discovery up to already operating mines. We believe we have taken a fantastic step forward in terms of fulfilling that mandate with the two assets we currently have. We own El Roble mine in Colombia and La Plata project in Ecuador. The interesting thing about these two assets that we own is that they not only have rich resource to build on, but they also have significant exploration potential. El Roble mine in Colombia has been operating for over 30 years, non-stop. And it's a BMS surrounded by a large land package of over 6,500 hectares. La Plata is a development stage project. It has a resource of about 2 million tons and is surrounded by, again, a large land package of over 2,300 hectares that we believe it's very prospective, again, to host other BMSs. So we get more into the details of each project as we move along the presentation. So jumping to the next slide, we'll see some of the corporate information. We have 119 million shares outstanding. We have no warrants. All the options are in the hands of management and insiders. We have a strong balance sheet with good liquidity. And this is liquidity status for the end of Q3. The picture for the end of the year, we believe, is going to be a much better one, which with the company showing a much robust situation for its balance sheet. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see that management and directors, they still are the largest shareholder of the company with around 16%. We also have institutions taking a long-term view of the company that own about 28%. And the rest is floating the market, it's retail ownership. So on the next slide, the two projects, as I mentioned, El Roble mine in Colombia, it's operating, it's generating cash flow. And La Plata in Ecuador is a development project. We're currently working on a feasibility study permitting it. So let's start with El Roble in Colombia. So El Roble is an underground mine. We acquired it in late 2013, and on the right-hand side of the slide, the lower side of the slide, you can see the production profile for both copper and gold. And you can see since late 2013, since we acquired the company, how we have transformed that production profile, increasing significantly the copper and gold production at El Roble mine. I think this is testament to the capacity as operators that we put forward with Atico. We not only transformed the production profile of the company, but also transformed the entire operation from environmental and safety standards to the efficiencies. We optimized the operation to what it is today, a robust cash flowing operation that is sustaining the growth of the company. El Roble produces a very clean copper and gold concentrate with about 22% copper and about 8 to 9 grams per ton of gold. Most of the concentrate we ship, we export, is going to Asia, mainly China, through the Buenaventura port in the Pacific side of Colombia. It's, again, a very clean concentrate, so we get very good terms for it. Now, moving on to the next slide, let's see some of the metrics around El Roble mine. This information here is for the trailing two reported quarters, meaning Q2 and Q3 of 2020. So it's a 6-month period. that includes from the second quarter to the third quarter of last year. And we generated from operations about $8 million. We had an all-in sustaining cash cost that's very competitive, very low, of $1.45 per pound of copper net of byproducts. We generated close to $7 million in free cash flow that gave us an all-in sustaining cost margin of 94%. Now, we produced in those 6 months about 10 million pounds of copper and 5,000 ounces of gold, with a C1 cash cost of $1.04 per pound of copper, with a throughput of 145,000 tons during those 6 months. Now, we have reserves for 3.5 years. Now, keep in mind that El Roble has been operating for 30 years. So when we took over in 2013, we took over with a life of mine of 6 years. Now, at 2021, we're looking at a life of mine of 3.5 years in reserves. So that means that we have been successful in replacing a significant portion of what we have been mining. And as we're going to see in the next slides, we are very much focused this year in adding new resources and extending the life of mine for El Roble. So let me also say that the average copper price at which we sold during this 6-month period was $2.80. That's right, $2.80 per pound of copper. It's the realized price we got during this 6-month period. So that gives you an idea of what this operation is capable of generating at the current prices. We definitely expect that 2021, if prices maintain, is going to be a record year for El Roble mine in terms of its financials. Now, let's move to the opportunities that we see at El Roble. On this slide, what we see is a long section of El Roble mine. So the mineralized pods that you see there is exactly what we are mining currently. El Roble mine, between what has been mined and what is left to be mined as we know it today, it's a 5 million ton deposit. So out of those 5 million tons, we still have left to mine a little bit over 1 million tons in reserves. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to find more. And that gives you a sense of the size and magnitude of this deposit. It's a very nice size for a VMS, in particular for the type of grades that this VMS hosts. All the information that we know so far from exploring and operating this deposit indicates that there is significant potential for the mineralization to continue. One that I can mention is that VMSs are very zoned. So in the center of a VMS, you will find the copper and the gold, which precipitates close to the source. When you get further away from the source, you start finding other minerals like zinc and barium that precipitate further away from the source, given the different temperature conditions. Now, right now, we believe that we're still mining the high grade copper and gold kind of center of the deposit. And we believe that as we get closer to the edges of the deposit, we're going to see a shift to then more zinc and other metals appearing. So given the structural controls that we understand now better at El Roble, after all these years of mining and exploring it, we believe there's significant potential to find more. We don't know how much more, but we are fairly certain that there's probably more here to be found. And 2021 is going to be a year where we're going to be very much focused on testing that hypothesis that there is more here to be found. So that's one of the opportunities at El Roble, finding more at El Roble mine itself. and extending the life of mine, which is right now very important for us. Now, the second opportunity at El Roble, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, is that El Roble mine is surrounded by a large land package that we control. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see a map of the claims that has the geology on it. And more or less at the center of that, that land package, you can see El Roble mine. Now, the green color that you see on the screen is basalt, and the kind of brownish color is black chert. At the contact of those two is where the El Roble mineralization is happening. So very early on, when we got to the property, we realized there was this favorable contact for VMS mineralization to happen, and we mapped it throughout 10 kilometers running through the property. On top of that favorable geology, we run geochemical sampling and geophysical surveys. Right now, we have 21 targets where we have anomalies coinciding with the right geology. And we know not all of those are going to be explained by a VMS. We're hopeful that one or two are going to be explained by a VMS. So far, we have drilled 6 of those 21 targets that we have. Of those 6, we have discarded 1. The other 5 are not discarded. We still believe there's opportunity for a VMS mineralization to happen, but the first pass we are giving this property is looking for a larger deposit. So if we define with the initial scout drilling that target doesn't have the space for a larger deposit, then we move on to the next systematically, and that's exactly what we're doing, looking for a larger deposit. Eventually, we'll come back and infill drilling to see if there's opportunity for, let's say, a 2-3 million deposit in one of those targets that we're leaving behind. Again, out of the 6 targets that we have already drilled, only 1 has been discarded. We're not going back to that one. The other 5, we are eventually going to come back, but right now we are focused systematically on looking for a larger deposit. And this is the big prize for us at El Roble, finding another large VMS deposit such as El Roble, which right now hosts, as I mentioned, 5 million tons, and we believe there's potential for more. And finding another deposit similar in size and grade to El Roble is exactly what we're looking for in this larger land package. This is a big prize for us. Now, in terms of La Plata in Ecuador, let's start by saying that La Plata is located 2.5 hours away from Quito. So very, very good in terms of access. It's more polymetallic in nature. It has more zinc and silver than gold than El Roble, but still very high grade. It's a VMS surrounded by over 2,300 hectares of property that we control, and we believe it's very prospective too. So before moving into the asset itself, let's talk a little bit about Ecuador, what has happened and what's going on currently. So Ecuador is now has embarked for the last 4 years in a path to diversify its economy. And that path is based mainly on relying on mining to provide that diversification to the economy. We recently had the first round of elections where no single candidate surpassed 50%, which means there's going to be a second round of elections on April 11th. The 2 candidates that right now are leading the poll are Andrés Araúz from the party of ex-President Correa and Guillermo Lasso, right-wing candidate. The third candidate is Jaco Perez, who clearly has more of an environmental and anti-mining plan. He's third in the polls right now, or in the count right now. Now, given that the second and third candidates are so close, Yacu Perez has asked the CNE, which is the entity that controls the election, for a recount. That's exactly what they're doing right now. They're recounting votes before the CNE can declare who are the two candidates that will pass on to the next phase of the election, which again will take place in April 11th. So far, we have Andrés Araúz won the first round with over 32%, and we're waiting to see who is going to be the second candidate. We believe that it's very likely that Guillermo Lasso, the right-wing candidate, will be the second candidate to go into the final round, which means that if that is the case, that we probably are going to see another 4 years in Ecuador of staying the course, meaning looking for a diversification of the economy and supporting mining as the primary tool to achieve that diversification. So moving to La Plata, what you see on this slide is the two blocks that compose the La Plata deposit. You can see on the left-hand side of the slide that we have 2 million tons of right now inferred resources and an equivalent gold grade of 12.9 grams per ton. And you can see below the different grades for all the metals that compose that equivalency. And this is, of course, a high-grade ore that has a polymetallic component to it. Again, kind of dissimilar from El Roble from that perspective, but the main value here is from copper and gold. Those are the primary sources of value in this asset. On the next slide, we can see the same two blocks that compose La Plata, now with the block model showing the grades. But the important thing here to notice is, let me see if I can draw in here, although I'm not seeing the option. Well, the red dot that you see on the bottom of the slide is showing a drill hole that intercepted BMS mineralization, massive sulfide mineralization, that is not included in the 2 million tons I just mentioned. So this is a hole that intersected a high-grade mineralization and was not followed through. Also, on the right-hand side of the slide, you can also see another one in what is called the Huachuca zone. What you see there is an intercept of 6.8 meters at 7% copper and 1 gram per ton of gold. So it's a significant intercept in terms of the length and in terms of the grade. It wasn't followed through also. So for us, this is a low-hanging fruit. It's an opportunity to then go ahead and explore those areas where we already know there is mineralization and try to add more tonnage to the resource. So we're currently infill drilling and doing some step-out drilling from the known mineralization as a part of getting to a feasibility study. So we're first migrating the infill resource into measured and indicated. So far, we've had very good success in terms of, one, proving the high-grade nature of the deposit, the consistency of the grades we have been able to prove as well, and we have found opportunities to extend mineralization. We're still working on the new resource. Of course, as you migrate inferred to measure and indicated, then we anticipate that there are certain areas that we're also going to lose given grade. But we are very thrilled and enthusiastic about the fact that we are finding or extending mineralization at this deposit. But more importantly than that, we also have seen, as we are exploring it, opportunity to find other bodies, just as these two south and north block, as we call them. We have seen opportunity to find more of those in the immediate area of this deposit. And an important part of the 2021 drill plan is going to be testing those areas where we see opportunity for other deposits to be. Now, that is, from our perspective, the biggest opportunity we have to quickly increase resources by adding all other blocks of mineral into the resource inventory that will again go into the feasibility study. So in the first 6 months of this year, that's going to be a very important part of what we're going to be doing. So again, what you see here is a map of the claims for La Plata. You can see La Plata deposit more or less at the center of those 2,300 hectares. And we already know, and although this is an underexplored area, there has been some efforts in the past. And for instance, Duncan Derry drilled 22 meters of 1.8% copper just north of La Plata deposit. So there are some strong indications that there is more than meets the eye in this land package. So the second half of 2021, we're going to start shifting our focus from the La Plata deposit and the infill drilling towards looking to the larger land package and looking for opportunities beyond La Plata mine, which we believe are very prospective in this land package. Now, also in 2021, we're going to be focused on La Plata in the feasibility study. We expect that this year we're going to have some significant advancement in the feasibility study and also in the permitting process. We do hope that before mid-2022, we're going to have a fully bankable feasibility study for this project. And the way we're seeing it, we're very confident that this is going to be a very profitable mine in the future. So this is part of our core belief, where we have been doing as a family, and certainly as Atico, we have been doing mining. We believe in mining responsibly. We believe in sharing with the community and bringing the community along, and of course, taking care of the environment. So I want to say that we just recently put out a news release saying that El Roble mine has stopped because of the failure in the tailings pipeline. I want to refer to that for a second. We did have a failure in a relief valve that conducts the tailings from the mill to the tailings dam that then consequentially implied some spill of tailings into the environment. So we immediately stopped. We stopped for 5 days, and we worked on making sure that we understand what failed and what we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So at this point, there has not been any material implications for whether personnel or the environment. We already had the visit of the environmental authorities, and we together went over the action plan to mitigate any future potential failure in the tailings pipeline. They were very satisfied with it, and in the next 12 hours, we should be starting the mill again. So, but we stopped the mill for several days, and that's part of how we believe this should be done. If you have a failure, you need to be responsible about it. That's exactly what we did, and we're happy to report that there was no material damage, and the mill will start in the next 12 hours. So also, I want to say that the investment case for Atico, from our perspective, is very clear. You have a proven team of mine developers and operators. We proved that with El Roble mine, how we transformed it. We're proving it with La Plata, how we are advancing the feasibility study. As a family, La Plata will be the 5th mine we are putting into operation. So we do have significant experience around Latin America doing this. And we understand what are the challenges in each jurisdiction around Latin America very well. We also have the advantage of generating significant cash flow from El Robles. And as I mentioned, 2021, if the prices continue at similar levels where they are today, it's going to be a record year by far in terms of cash generation for El Roble that will continue to support growth for the company. We're also focused on high margin assets, which is an advantage as we are here for the long term. We're here for good cycles and bad cycles. So we choose very carefully the assets that we want to operate. And at the same time, we look for assets that have upside. That's for us, the main value creation potential organically in the assets that we own is the blue sky potential of a discovery, and something that we constantly pursue, obviously self-funded. So with that, then I'll turn it again for questions.
Okay, thanks, Fernando. And can you see me and hear me okay?
I can see and hear you, John.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll start off. Jason's asked a number of questions here. The first one, is the company providing any 2021 financial and production guidance?
Yes, we have provided some production and cost guidance in the news release, and we will expand that on the MD&A for 2021.
Okay, and what would be what your earnings report is expected when?
So the earnings report is expected before the end of March.
Before the end of March, okay. So the next one, what is the capital budget in 2021 dedicated to exploration? How would these funds be allocated at El Roble resource expansion versus exploration at surrounding area VMS candidates?
So let's start with El Roble. We are allocating over $5 million to exploration at El Roble. Out of those, about 1.5 will be looking for additional mineralization at El Roble mine, and about 3.5 to 4 will be looking for another VMS deposit in the larger land package. So that's the split. At La Plata, we're going to be drilling about 10,000 meters. That's the initial budget. And the exploration budget at La Plata is going to be about $2.5 million.
$2.5 million, okay. Nick is asking, what is the CapEx estimate for La Plata?
So right now, since we're working on the feasibility study, all we have is the preliminary economic assessment. And the PA calls for a CapEx of $60 million for an 850 ton per day operation. Now, as we are fine-tuning the resources that will go into the feasibility study, that might change in terms that the daily throughput or the capacity of the mill might change as well. That will drive CapEx too.
Okay. And I believe in the presentation, Fernando, you mentioned when you were expecting that. I just can't remember. Was it this year you were expecting the feasibility study, or was it next year?
Before mid next year, before mid 2022.
Okay. Question here from Jacques Wortman, analyst at Laurentian Bank Securities. Given the drilling results completed at La Plata to date and reported to the market, are you confident that the overall tonnage will increase relative to the most recent resource estimate and PEA?
I think it's early to say. Well, the PEA had 2 million tons of inferred resources. And we certainly expect that it will. But I think it's early to say. And so we will have to wait still until we finish the infill drilling. For sure, the certainty of the resource will increase as we'll migrate everything to measured and indicated. But I think it's early to tell right now, Jack.
Okay. You might have already kind of answered this question. What is the exploration budget at La Plata for both definition, drilling, and expansion? And will this be completely funded from El Roble cash flow?
Yes, it will be completely funded from El Roble cash flow. Everything the company is doing is being funded from El Roble cash flow right now. And the split for infill drilling, and we put together infill drilling with step-out drilling at La Plata versus drilling in other parts of the land package, is right now about 70% will go into La Plata and 30% into exploring new areas for this year.
Okay. Question here, how has your experience in working with the Ecuadorian government been overall?
So far, it's been fantastic. I am a Peruvian national, and our experience, of course, is mainly from Peru. So we have the benefit of dealing with governments and seeing how governments operate in various different countries in Latin America. I have to say that my experience with Ecuador so far has been very refreshing. Of course, you get into the situations where you have to deal with a government apparatus that is not used to deal with mining, and we have to understand that it's not all rosy, but you can see the intention that the government wants to imprint into the diversification of the economy through mining. You can see that intent when you deal with government officials at mostly any level.
Okay. Sort of a follow-up question, I suppose, around the same tack. Is the permitting process in Ecuador difficult?
It is. These days, I'll say it's difficult everywhere. I don't think there's any place where you can say the permitting process is easy, at least that I know of. Now, is it more difficult than any other place? No. Is it more difficult than Colombia? Certainly not. More difficult than Peru? I can argue that maybe not to these days. So we are using the same company that helped Fruta del Norte get its permit in Ecuador. It's the large gold mine from Lundin Gold, and they know their way around Ecuador very well in terms of getting the permit, and we're working with them, and so far we're very satisfied.
Okay. Fernando, I don't know if you might not be able to answer this question, but what average realized price of copper are you budgeting for in 2021 with respect to, when you're allocating your capital resources? Obviously, it's going to be a lot better than your realized price in 2020, as you pointed out.
Not necessarily. As I mentioned, for the 6 months that I showed in this presentation, we had a realized price of $2.80. For the full year, we're going to be close. This is an estimate as we don't have the final results, but this is going to be close to $2.94 per pound of copper. So now our budget for 2021 is based in copper price very similar to that which we had in 2020, $2.94. It's very similar to that. So what we're seeing right now in terms of prices is significantly, it's materially beyond what we budgeted.
Okay, just had a fresh question come in. You mentioned on the last conference call that you expected a double load of copper in the fourth quarter and a larger than normal load in the first quarter. Is it possible that the company could have 20 million cash to contribute to the 60 million needed capex to get the La Plata to production?
We certainly expect so. That's our plan so far. Of course, if we move along, things might change as other priorities might appear and other uses of funds. But so far, where we stand today, we believe it's likely that we're going to be able to contribute an amount similar to that you mentioned, the 20 million, to the construction of La Plata. So based on the financial year that we expect we're going to have in 2020, we believe it's going to be a very good year. We had a good quarter with 2 shipments. We believe we are going to have a good first quarter in 2021. And given the price environment, we believe 2021 might be a record year for us in terms of cash generation. That supports the idea that we're going to be able to contribute a significant portion of the capex needed for construction of La Plata.
Okay. Fernando, any plans for the company to hedge copper, your copper production at all to hedge against, price movement or even hedge against currency risk?
So we do have a hedge plan in place for both metal and currency, but as we sell the concentrate, we sometimes have a 3-month period until the price is locked with the buyer, and we usually hedge that period only.
Okay.
So we don't hedge long term. We don't have long term hedges currently. We only hedge that period, and we do very similar things for the currency. We hedge short term needs.
Okay, and I guess following up to Tony's question, so say you're able to provide that 20 million in cash to go towards La Plata, the other 40 million, do you have, are there negotiations sort of in place or potential sources of funding already being sourced for the remaining, say, 40 million?
It's very early in the process, John, but we do have already started some conversations with certain potential lenders. And what we're seeing right now is that it is a very favorable environment to get financing for a project such as La Plata. We are very hopeful. We believe that we are going to get a very robust feasibility study for La Plata, and that's going to make it even easier to finance that. So those two combined, the fact that we're seeing a very favorable environment in terms of getting finance and a robust project, I think will make it very easy for us with a lot of options to choose from when it comes to financing the project.
Okay. New question just from Eduardo. Can you comment on the Ecuadorian Constitutional Court in the mining referendum? I understand it only applies to new permits, but there has also been some ambiguity on what constitutes new exploitation licenses in their view.
Yes, so Eduardo, it's definitely not clear. So we'll have to see where this goes. It's definitely not clear. We have the same question, and most people, analysts we talk to, they have the same question. At some point, what we believe is going to happen is that the court is going to have to solve that ambiguity.
Okay. Question from Jacques here again. Can you speak to exploration potential at La Plata further to the north in Guatuza?
So we now, the latest understanding that we have is that what Guatuza might be, and I'm going to emphasize might be, a part of the North Block. So it might be the north end of the North Block. So we're going to test that hypothesis, seeing if we can put together Guatuza and the North Block. It's an area that has been severely disturbed post-mineralization. So we're trying to get our arms around what happened here, where mineralization might continue. We do see some opportunity, but it's not an easy target for sure. Our best chance right now, I believe, is in getting together the North Block and Guatuza.
Okay. How many years do you have left in terms of reserves at El Roble to continue to run without, absent any new discovery there?
So El Roble has reserves for 3.5 years of operation at this current level of throughput.
And that's taking into account the changing nature of the mineralization, you said, like moving from maybe the more copper gold rich to possibly more rich in, say, like the zinc side of things?
No, this is only taking into consideration the high copper, high gold portion that we know. We know, and it's a reserve right now. We have already transformed it from a resource to a reserve. So we're mining reserves, and we have 3.5 years of reserves, which means very high certainty of what we have there. So, and we believe, as you mentioned, there is potential to find more. And I personally believe that, given all the information that we have, that we're going to see the end of this deposit once we start finding the higher the mineralization with the higher zinc rates. That it's somewhere that we're following the structural controls to see where the mineralization might have gone, but we're still yet to find it.
Okay. Another question here from Tony. What are our hopes in the next few months over the geological work at La Plata, and how will those results help us to acquire greater ownership, attract investors? Also, do you have a position to try to keep dilution down in the future?
Okay, so let's start by saying that there are two things that we need to do to increase the ownership at La Plata. So we currently own 60% of La Plata. And the two things that we need to do is, one, we need to deliver a feasibility study, which we're working on, and that will get us to 65% ownership. The second thing that we need to do is finance the project, which we have to do anyway again, and that will get us to whether 75 or 70%, depending on if the financing is beyond 60 million or below 60 million. So that's basically the two things that we need to do: get a feasibility study and finance the project. And I believe we should get to 75% ownership with that. Now, I believe the potential for La Plata is beyond the 2 million tons inferred and the measured and indicated that we're going to get as part of the feasibility study. I believe the potential is significantly more, not only in the larger land package, where we're excited to start drilling later this year, but also, as I mentioned, we see potential in the immediate surrounding area of the Plata mine to find other mineralized blocks, such as the north and the south block. And that's what we're going to be trying to test through the first 6 months of 2021. If we are successful, that will immediately go into the inventory for the resources for the feasibility study, for sure. And that will, I think, will change the face of the project significantly.
Okay. And then just his last point, do you have a position to try and keep dilution down in the future? That was the last part of the question.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I can tell you that we are always wearing the owners, the shareholders hat, as we are as a family, and along with insiders, the largest shareholder of the company. We don't like dilution. We like to keep it tight because we understand that if and when we have exploration success and a discovery, that will definitely impact how high we can go with the share price. So we are trying to keep it low, and that's what we have tried to do in the past years. We're using El Roble mine as a source of growth funds to continue growing the company, and we certainly expect that we are going to be able to continue doing so.
Okay. Well, Fernando, I don't see any other questions here, so I guess we can probably end it there. Based on your last slide here, I'm guessing if people have follow-up questions they want to ask, they can reach out to Igor at Corporate Development then?
Absolutely. Or Corporate Development or myself will be happy to get back with answers to your questions.
Okay. Well, really interesting company. Thanks. Really appreciate you joining us here and giving your presentation and answering all these questions. So any closing comments before we turn it over?
Well, thank you very much for having us. I believe we have, in this price environment, we're well posed to continue growing the company and deliver for shareholders. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay.